everyone. Before we start today's webinar, I just want to take a minute of your time and introduce this year's National Multiple Sclerosis Education Awareness Month Toolkit. So this toolkit is filled with lots of activities and worksheets and things for you to do that can help ground you in today's world with the ever-evolving MS and medicine itself. If you haven't received your toolkit yet and you are registered, just be on the lookout. It should be coming into your mailbox shortly. And if you would like to register with us to receive this magazine alongside our other magazines, you can respond to your registration email or your reminder email that you received today, and we will be happy to sign you up. I just want to take a second and thank everybody for attending this webinar today, and also thank everybody, including our sponsors, Biogen, Genentech, Sanofi, EMD Serono, Sandoz, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Viatris. I hope you enjoy this webinar. And again, if you want to register, please just send us an email and we'll be happy to sign you up. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thanks, Bhavya. So hello, everyone, and welcome to this National MS Education and Awareness Month conference hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, and made possible with support, once again, from Biogen, Genentech, EMD Serono, Sanofi, Viatris, Sandoz, and Bristol Myers Squibb. I'm your host, Deborah Foreman. I'm the Educational Programs Coordinator for MS Focus, and I'm joined by Nichole Goble, will be talking to us today about caring for your loved one and yourself. After Nichole's presentation, we're going to open it up to your questions and comments. And now I'm delighted to introduce our speaker. Nichole Goble is the current Director of Community Initiatives at Caregiver Action Network. She has been with the organization since 2017. As part of her role as Director of Community Initiatives, she manages activities and programs with non-funding community partners and moderates caregiver roundtables and learning collaboratives. She also presents to various community groups on a variety of topics related to caregiving and the resources and supports provided by CAN. Nichole brings a unique perspective to her role, being an individual with a disability that has been on both sides of the caregiving relationship. She has also a background in disability advocacy and experience working with youth and families. We're very pleased to have you today, Nichole, and I'm excited you're going to be talking about this topic because it's a really hot topic. So, welcome.
It is indeed, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that lovely intro, Deborah. So what I'm going to do right now is share some slides. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so as Deborah said, this is really going to be about some aspects of caregiving, as well as a little bit of a focus about caring for yourself, because who is taking care of the caregiver? That's the question. And so we want to make sure that you understand some tips and tricks so that you are able to take care of yourself as a caregiver, so you're able to be there for your loved one. And my cat agrees. All right. Let me advance here. So, as Deborah said, I am the Director of Community Initiatives at Caregiver Action Network. But another title I hold proudly is caregiver for my mom. I'm a long distance caregiver for my mom. She has advanced COPD. And so this is my mom. And yeah, so one of the things about CAN that makes us a unique, I think, organization is that all of us on staff have a unique relationship to caregiving. As former First Lady Rosalind Carter said, to summarize what she said, was that basically we're all touched by caregiving at some point in our life. Either we are a caregiver, we're going to be a caregiver or we're going to need care. And as Deborah said, I'm also a person with a rare disease. And so I kind of understand that dynamic as well, as being both someone that's a caregiver and someone that, it has some health challenges that demands additional care. But I want to talk just for a moment about Caregiver Action Network, because this may be the very first time that you're hearing about the organization. So we serve the 90 million family caregivers in the United States. Now, this may seem like an astronomical number compared to other numbers that you've seen in various reports and news stories around. And that's because we are looking at caregiving across the lifespan. So we are looking at a caregiver, a parent or a guardian that's caring for a small child, an infant, a newborn, born with a disability. We're looking at that spouse that is caring for, their partner that's just been diagnosed with cancer. We are looking at siblings that may be caring for a sibling with an intellectual or developmental disability. And then, of course, caring for an older loved one, which is, sometimes I think the more stereotypical view that we have of caregivers, caring for an aging parent or grandparent that's dealing with things like Alzheimer's, dementia, other impacts of aging. But we really do go the whole lifespan. So that's why 90 million is probably a little bit of a conservative estimate when you take that into consideration. But what do we do? Well, like I said, we serve the family caregivers, but more importantly, why? Well, we want caregivers to have resources and tools to do their job, to fulfill their role, to be there as support for their loved one. We want to help caregivers feel less stress and less burnout with some of those resources, tools, and providing them with some support. And probably an interesting one, we want to create respect for family caregivers. And that means raising the voice of caregivers in every arena that we can. This really speaks to a lot of the policy work that we do as well. So when pieces of legislation, bills are introduced that have an impact on healthcare and the role of a caregiver and patient, we want to be there to make sure that the caregiver perspective and voice is heard. So I'm going to break things down kind of in the 3 different little pockets here. First, I want to talk about some of the unique challenges of caregiving. Because sometimes in the day-to-day, kind of flurry of everything, we don't really think about what some of those unique challenges are that we face and some of the impacts that they may have. I also want to really frame the conversation about what caregivers do by talking about the many hats that caregivers wear. And then I want to hit on something that is really sometimes I think a challenge to talk about, the 4-letter word, help, how we ask for it and how we accept it, and why it's okay to do both. All right, so first things first, the word caregiver. I use the word caregiver because that's just kind of the terminology that we use kind of across a lot of different spaces. But you may not call yourself a caregiver. You may call yourself a care partner. You may call yourself mom. You may call yourself wife. You may call yourself whatever whatever kind of dictates that relationship. But you don't have to call yourself a caregiver to understand that the support that you're providing to a loved one, that's caregiving. So anytime that you reach out to Caregiver Action Network, it doesn't matter if you identify, call yourself a caregiver, we recognize the work that you're doing. And that's the important piece. Now, one of the unique challenges here that I want to hit on is the balancing of different relationships. We often think of caring for a loved one within kind of a tunnel. But if you're caring for a spouse, you have children, perhaps, you have parents, you have other family members, other relationships, and balancing all of that, what that looks like, all of those demands that those relationships have, the work that those relationships entail. So that's hard work. And that can be a really difficult juggling act to do. And one of the things that we often don't talk about, one of the things that we kind of qualify as being one of the challenging emotions or things that we struggle with as caregivers, caring can feel constant. Kind of ties in with not being able to balance those other relationships, because we feel like we're never able to kind of switch off that role of a caregiver. It feels all consuming, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. All right, so let's talk about hats. So I want to break this down into two kind of segments of hats. First off, there's the you hat. And then there's the caregiving hat. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, what is a you hat? What do you mean by this? I shall explain. So a you hat. A you hat basically encompasses everything that you are, or all the things that you are, outside of that role of a caregiver. So what I have here, way back when, in 2021, for our National Family Caregivers Month, we launched a campaign. We had actually launched it a little bit earlier in the year, a little bit quieter, but we really made some noise with it in November for National Family Caregivers Month, and it was called Caregiver And. Because in conversations that we were having with caregivers, they were losing parts of themselves. They said, well, there's so much to me that I don't get to do anymore, that I don't get to celebrate, that no one really realizes because I'm just a caregiver. And that's not true. We're all dynamic, interesting, multifaceted people. And so we wanted to create a campaign that elevated that idea. And so we created Caregiver And so you see an image from our campaign here. But again, it's kind of focusing in on, who you are outside of caregiving. So here you have, well, I'm a mom. This is my kid, but I'm also caring for my grandma with MS. So those are both two really important roles, right? And there's the unspoken role. I'm just a granddaughter caring for my grandma. It also speaks to the relationship that you have with your loved one outside of that role of a caregiver. I care for my mom. I'm her daughter. she is also my caregiver, and she never lets me forget that. So your relationship with your loved one is dynamic and multifaceted as well. And that can feel kind of, kind of swamped by the role of caregiving. Oftentimes spouses will say, it's hard to just be that partner to my loved one when I'm also a caregiver. And it's something that you really have to kind of think about. So another U kind of hat is work, right? What we have discovered is that many family caregivers, a majority, are employed. They work part-time, full-time, hourly, whatever the case may be. And your role as a caregiver is part of you, who you are at work. The person that I am at work is who I am at work. And that's different from who I am as a caregiver, calling my mom to say, hey, you didn't send me an update on how treatment went. How's it going? So, these are all roles that you're trying to juggle while doing all of that caregiving work. Now, this one is really special to me because this is one of the things that I feel often gets first put to the back burner. And it's our hobbies, our interests, our passions. Not necessarily a job, although your job can be your passion. But these are things that bring us joy, like music, right? Maybe you are the first person that wants to buy those tickets to a concert when your favorite band or musician is coming to town. And, maybe you are an avid reader and you feel so happy when you have that time to sit down with a book. These are things that we often kind of slowly push bit by bit to the side as caregivers because the time just doesn't allow us. Money doesn't allow us. And so it's really important that we do recognize that as part of who we are, we have these passions, these interests, these hobbies, and these are things that bring us joy. And participating in these is part of what is caring for ourselves sometimes. All right, let's switch gears. Now, talked about the U hats. Now I'm going to talk about caregiving hats with the help of some very cute dogs in these photos. So one of the hats that you wear as a caregiver, and probably one of the hats that I think many, many caregivers across many caregiving situations can relate to, is that medication manager. So what does medication management mean? It means a lot of things. It means everything from keeping track of all the medications that your loved one is taking, right? New medications, keeping kind of a record of old medications, what dosage they're on, has the dosage changed, side effects, all of that stuff. We have a medication list template on our website. And we even have like sections where it talks about over-the-counter medications, describing what the medication looks like, what form it comes in, if it's an injectable, a pill, a liquid, because you know what? If someone else is assisting your loved one with any kind of medication, it could be, a neighbor, another relative, friend, church member, whoever the case may be, coming in to help with some medication. That's useful information to have for them. Maybe it's just someone picking up medication on the way home. Well, this is a way that they can verify that they got the right stuff. So it's again, picking up medications, making sure your loved one is taking it, all of those components. And there's a couple of things I just mentioned that I'll get into a little bit later with another hat. Transportation coordinator is another hat that caregivers wear. Again, this is a complex one. Can mean taking your loved one to and from appointments, therapy sessions, errands, all of that stuff. Or it can also mean that you are coordinating it. You are the person that's like, all right, we have this medical appointment at 2 o'clock on Thursday. I have a meeting. I'm not going to be able to do it. What are we going to do? How is this going to happen? And then as a caregiver, you're probably like, well, and how am I going to make sure it happens and everything is fine? So transportation coordinator is a pretty complex little role there. It isn't just, you know, being that source of transportation. It can be truly the coordinating, making sure that someone else is there to get your loved one to and from the place they need to go safely. Scheduler. So those medical appointments, who's putting them on the calendar? Who's calling a doctor to make them? It's a caregiver. More times than not, especially in cases like with my mom. My mom is very good about making her own appointments, but I still have to send her sometimes like a reminder to be like, hey, you have a medical appointment tomorrow. Do you have everything that you need? What's the deal? All of that stuff, any kind of little scheduling thing, calendar wise, you're kind of probably part of that process. And just like with transportation, well, maybe you're not able to be the person that's there. Let's say you're a long distance caregiver, like I am. Well, my mom has a doctor's appointment. My mom has a hair appointment at 4 o'clock on Friday. So I have to be the one that's coordinating and scheduling that with my niece so that she can make sure that my mom has a ride there and a ride home. So again, scheduling, all kind of part of that puzzle. All right, the errand runner. This is picking up medications on the way home. This is picking up groceries. This is all of the little things. This is that hair appointment. It's all of this stuff. The errand runner. Maybe this is you. Maybe it's someone else that's part of that care team. And by care team, I'm going to mention the care team as kind of shorthand, probably here and there. By the care team, I'm just talking about, again, those family members that may be helping you out with caring for your loved one, siblings, other family members, community members, neighbors, friends. Your care team can be whatever it needs to be, but that's who I'm talking about. So the errand runner, making sure that all of those things that your loved one needs, that they're getting, you know, that they're running the little errands that they need to get, all of that stuff can rely on the caregiver to really orchestrate. And this is also a big one and an important one. And I've mentioned elements of this, record keeper. So whether you are with your loved one going to, let's say, a doctor's appointment, or you're a long distance caregiver, you can be in charge of keeping track of everything, medical records. Because if your loved one is going to an appointment, maybe you need to go back and say, okay, well, what did the doctor say last time? You know, what was that test result? What was this, so that we can follow up? It's keeping all of those records together and keeping them also together in a place or in a way that is accessible for maybe that other care team member that's going to the appointment with your loved one, if you're a long distance caregiver or not able to be at the appointment. It's that medication list I referenced, right? All of that information about one single medication, you know, what it looks like, the dosage, when it was prescribed, when it expires, all of that stuff. That's all really important to keep track of, and that can fall on the shoulders of a caregiver, not just keeping track of it, but also making sure that other people that kind of have a role in any aspect of this are updating it as well. So that can, you know, after an appointment, texting someone to say, hey, how did the appointment go? Did you add in that new medication that, you know, mom mentioned that the doctor referenced she needs to start taking? That would be great. So it's a pretty complex role. And all of these are going to look a little bit different based on your caregiving situation. But I just kind of want to give you a flavor of, like, these are just the hats that within your role as a caregiver, you're kind of switching off and on with some quickness more times than not. And then there's healthcare advocate. So you're at that doctor's appointment with your loved one. Well, one of the things that we always talk about with caregivers is that no one knows their loved one better than a caregiver. You understand the ins and outs of how your loved one, you know, is kind of taking on this care plan, right? And by care plan, I mean treatments, therapies, medications, any of that stuff. Not only are you active in that, but you're kind of seeing how your loved one can do it. You're an advocate. You are kind of that backup voice for your loved one to make sure that their goals and their healthcare wishes are being followed as part of that care plan. So you're saying, you know, how many times have we gone to a doctor's appointment with someone and they've said, you know, the doctor asked that first question, so how's everything doing? How's everything going? How are you doing? Fine. And you're like, well, actually, no. Let me tell you about these 6 things that have happened since our last appointment that I have questions on, and I know they do too, because we talked about it yesterday. So you're really being that advocate and making sure also that your loved one's questions are being asked. We often forget that we only have about 10 minutes with the doctor when we have an appointment. That's a ridiculously short amount of time. And you have to make the most out of it. So you're preparing those questions before a visit. You're even printing them off. This may sound silly, but it's important. Why? Because if you're not able to get through all of those questions before that time, you can leave that list with them. You can leave that list with the nurse and say, these were the questions that I have, and I would really like some answers. You know, is there any kind of follow-up that we can schedule? Because, you know, sometimes doctors are really great about saying, like, oh, okay, yeah, I can go through these and I can shoot you an email this week to cover some things that we didn't get to today. So just having that on hand is really important. But again, these roles are all going to kind of have to fit into what your caregiving situation looks like. All of this to say, none of this is easy. And having to switch between these hats, these various roles within a role, I guess you could say, is hard. It's very, very hard. and it leads to kind of further stress. It leads to caregiver burnout, all of that stuff. So I want you to think about, and maybe this is something that we can talk about at the end. What are some ones that I haven't talked about? Because this is, this is tip of the iceberg stuff. There's probably 603 other hats that I didn't even reference, that you're probably like, yes, this is a hat that I wear as a caregiver. So I want you to keep that in mind. All right. So we've talked about the unique challenges. We've talked about the many hats. So how do you take care of yourself? You ask for help. You ask for help and you accept that help. So let's talk about how that's done. First things first, understand that it is okay to ask for help. As a caregiver, we often feel that we have to do everything. That asking someone for help is a sign of weakness on our part. We can feel like we're letting our loved ones down. I remember when I was caring for my grandpa. My grandpa had bone cancer. And at a certain point, his mobility was pretty rough. And so he needed some extra help getting around, getting to the bathroom. He was 6'3", 4", somewhere in there. I'm 4'9". So it was a challenge. And at some point I was like, Grandpa, I want to do this, but I can't, because if both of us fall and get hurt, no one is helped by this. No one is doing well. And I will feel absolutely awful. So we ended up bringing in some in-home help. And also my mom and my sister would come by and help as well. So it was awkward because I wanted to be that caregiver. I wanted to be kind of everything to my grandpa. That was part of what I had signed on for. But I had to know my limitations, because at one point it just wasn't going to be feasible, and I could cause some great harm to myself and my grandpa, and that's certainly not what was on the agenda. But so using that as an example, I had a very specific thing that I could ask for help for. Because how many times are we asked for help and we're deer in headlights? We don't even know how to respond. Or we just brush it off and say, nope, I'm good, but thank you so much. Well, a tactic is start making a list of things that you need help with, or things that you would be comfortable having someone help you with. It can be anything. It can be, hey, I need, maybe it's something a little bit more, I guess, structured, in terms of I need someone to come in and do this with some regularity. Maybe it's, hey, it would be great if I could have someone come in and help with laundry on the weekends, because I'm feeling really overwhelmed and I have so much to do. And so you can really make this list whatever you need it to be, but make a list. Really think about it. And if you start to make that list and you can't think of anything to put down, keep thinking about it, because there will be something that eventually you can put on that list. I promise you. And know that that it's not a shortcoming on your part to put anything on that list, because you're just making sure that you and your loved one are cared for. And this is part of it. So once you have that list made, and like I said, you're going to have those friends, those family members coming to you and saying, hey, is everything okay? Is there anything I can help with? You can share that list with them. Maybe you have a pretty structured care team and you guys have regular kind of meetings. Say, all right, let's update each other. You can share that list with them with some regularity, and people can say, all right, well, I can do this thing. We can do this thing over here. So that takes a little bit off your shoulders and it allows you to focus on yourself and your loved one. So another aspect of caring for yourself is finding support. You guys are all here. So congratulations, you have checked this one off the box a little bit here. You have found support. You have connected with peers, with folks that are caregiving, that are in that same kind of boat as you. Now, support groups vary greatly, and that's something that's truly wonderful. There are support groups that run a lot of different ways. They're in person, they're virtual, there are kind of general caregiving support groups where it's caregivers coming from lots of different kind of caregiving situations. There are groups like this, which are, caregivers for loved ones of a certain disease or condition. You can really find a support group that's going to meet your specific support needs. That's really important, because there's really nothing more beneficial than kind of coming together with your peer group and sharing and learning. Oftentimes, caregivers, those awkward things that we don't like to talk about, we can feel a little bit more comfortable talking about it within a support group, because we know that those folks, the folks sitting around us, truly understand where we are. Now, another way to take care of yourself is resources, information, tips, tricks. And so what I have here is our family caregiver toolbox on our website. Now, what you'll see here is these different categories that we have a multitude of different resources. Like I mentioned, we have a medication list. One of our biggest resources is called the 10 tips. And it's 10 tips for family caregivers. They're very just kind of succinct and brief. It's on our website as well. And it's, I think, in all of these categories. But you'll notice we have some pretty interesting categories, right? We have, well, I'm looking for something and I'm caring by condition, or I'm new to caregiving, or I'm trying to juggle work and caregiving. So we've kind of curated list of our resources to really speak to someone that's going to click on that. But there's a lot of crossover too. So things like our 10 tips, that's in all of them, because it's useful for everyone kind of across a lot of different caregiving situations. For our caring by condition, we are slowly but surely building more and more resources centered around caring for a loved one with specific diseases, conditions, because we understand that there are unique challenges. Caring for a loved one with MS is going to look a lot different than caring for a child with a rare disease. It's going to look a lot different than caring for a parent or a grandparent with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. We want to be thoughtful about that. So we're continuing to build out more resources, But one of the things is that we have found that our resources really speak in a way to caregivers across lots of caregiving situations. So I highly encourage you to peruse the website at your leisure. And my contact information will be coming up here in just a short. So if you have any questions about a specific resource or trying to find something, you can always reach out to me, and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. Now, one of our biggest resources is our caregiver help desk. What is the caregiver help desk? Well, it's kind of what it sounds like. It's customer support for a caregiver. It's that one-on-one support. So you can call this number here on your screen. You can go to our website, and if you go to our website, one of the things that you'll notice right when you log in, and you probably have noticed this on other websites too, you know, when you go to a website and there's like a little chat box that pops up in the corner. Well, now we have one of them. We're one of the cool kids, but we're the coolest kid because it connects you with the caregiver help desk. So if you're a person like me that sometimes feels awkward on the phone, or maybe you're in a place where you can't talk, but you can chat, you can have that going. You can go to the website. There's also an email function as well. Now, the hours to the help desk are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern. So it's not a 24/7 kind of helpline, but the help desk staff is absolutely phenomenal about getting back to folks within kind of one business day. So if you call, you can leave a voicemail. If you're chatting at like midnight, that chat is going to be sent as an email. So you're going to get that information. They're going to reach back out to you. So there's no worries about that. They're going to have your information to get back to you. So, and they're, like I said, very, very good about that in a pretty short time. All right, so I want to talk through just as kind of review what we've gone through. So we've talked about the unique challenges, right? The balancing different relationships, kind of losing bits of yourself sometimes it can feel as a caregiver, and that toll. We talked about the hats, wearing many hats, and what that looks like, and how difficult it can be to kind of switch on and off. And we talked about the difficulty, importance. We have gone through quite a bit. And so with that, I want to make sure that we leave a little bit of time. So I do want to leave some contact information up here as well. We've got our website. We've got that number here to reach out if you have any questions. The info at caregiveraction.org. It's an info email address, and sometimes you feel like emailing those shoots you into the void. I promise you it doesn't, because I respond to them. And then our social media, a lot of our resources and information like that we share. So yeah, I will leave it at.
Thank you, Nichole. I think you're frozen. Either that or I'm frozen. Oh, I don't know, Nichole. I don't know. Let's see. Bhavia, are you frozen?
No, I think it's Nicole's connection. It's a little choppy.
Okay. Well, good. There she is. She's back again. Nichole,
Hello?
I don't know. Hi, Nichole. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you just
You
fine.
can, maybe if you take away your slides, maybe, yep, there you are. Okay,
Perfect.
good. I don't even hear the static anymore. I love Zoom. Comes and goes, it's all perfect. And I didn't get to see your cat, but I got to hear him, so, or her. So that was nice.
Yes.
But thank you. That was wonderful information, really helpful. So I'm going to tell everyone, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, you just go to your app down at the bottom and go to the Q&A section. Um, you can even put your question in anonymously if you like, or if you need to raise your hand and you want to do a live, ask Nichole directly live, you can actually do that. Just raise your hand and we'll call on you, and then um, you'll have to say, yes, please take me off. So also, if you want to do this by phone, you just hit *9 if you're on the phone, and that's how you can get through to her. But I do have a question. Uh, a lot of this resonated with me because I was a caregiver for my mom. And so I know that it was very difficult for me, as I'm sure it is for many people that are caregivers, to give up control. And you mentioned that, right? And I loved what you said about a list. So if
Mhm.
you have a list, you can let people choose from that list. That's what you said. And that list might be things that you are comfortable giving away, and you can keep the things that you're not comfortable giving away, right? So
Mhm.
I remember I used to refer to my mom as my 5-year-old child named Mom. And when my brothers would say, well, you should do this, I'd say, no, 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 she's my 5-year-old child named Mom. And I wouldn't let anybody do the things that I felt uncomfortable with. But I loved the idea that I could have, if I was smart, if I had listened to you way back when, I would have given away the things that were more comfortable for me to give away, and maintained the responsibilities of those things that I couldn't feel as though somebody could do well enough. And that would have made my life way easier. So, all of our listeners, please do that. Make yourself a list. And just like Nichole said, let people choose from the list as to what you feel most comfortable having them help you with. I love that idea. I'm going to remember that and pass that on to everybody I know. Everyone. Also, Nichole, I have a question, because we at the MS Foundation, or Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, we also call ourselves MS Focus. We we refer to our clients as that are caregivers. We refer to them as care partners. We
Mhm.
try our hardest to refer to everyone as care partners. And I know that that's the new PC way of doing it, but so many of my friends and so many people that call us still refer to their care partner or caregiver as caregiver. Is
Yes.
there a right or a wrong? Is there I know that it's becoming more prevalent to call everybody care partners, and I love that concept, that it's a partnership, right? I get it.
Mhm.
I love that idea. But is it a negative thing to keep referring to them as caregivers, or are we headed toward never saying that word again?
Well, I mean, I think that it varies. I mean, we also have to consider, cultural components as well in this discussion. Because what we refer to ourselves within that relationship is really shaped by so many different things. I don't think that caregiver is a bad word at all. I think it kind of describes that aspect of a relationship. But I love care partner as
I,
well. I think I think it's a wonderful word, and more and more folks really levitate towards that, and certainly I love it. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily matter what you call yourself at the end of the day, um, because it's really about recognizing your role, understanding your role as a caregiver, and finding those supports. Because that's really a difficulty, I think, is that if you don't necessarily connect with that identity of being a caregiver or a care partner, however you kind of want to frame it, you don't really know where to go.
right.
And so, yeah, I think there's, you know, Yeah, I love the term care partner, and but I think that caregiver is okay too.
Okay, good. Okay, so we do have some questions. Let's see. We have an anonymous question. Is it normal to sometimes feel angry and frustrated?
100%, absolutely. Dealing with difficult and challenging emotions is part of caregiving. It's anger, it's frustration, it's grief, resentment, it's relief sometimes. A lot of caregivers uh, or care partners will reach out and share stories about, my loved one. Um, my loved one has passed, and I feel relieved. I feel relieved now that some of my time in my life I can get back to, and I'm relieved that my loved one isn't in pain anymore. And I feel bad about that. I feel awful. And these are normal feelings. Absolutely, absolutely normal feelings. And that's why finding that support, especially, connecting with those support groups, because you will hear probably a chorus of people right behind you saying, yes, i'm I'm there, I've been there. I understand, so that you don't feel alone. Because one of the things that I think we all probably can understand is that when you experience those feelings, the worst thing is to feel like you're alone in it. And it just feels so much more intense and worse.
Thank you. Nicole, Helen said that her husband is the one who signed up and he's the one that really needs this. So she wanted to make sure that she could find you on YouTube. But I did want to make one comment that everything tonight has been recorded. And I'll remind everyone at the end of this webinar also, but everything's been recorded along with Nicole's slides. So you'll be able to look at that at your leisure. Your husband can go in, Helen, at his leisure and watch that. And then I don't know, other than that, do you have YouTube videos of yourself?
So we do not have, we're actually very excited in the process of beefing up our YouTube presence. However, if you go to our website, we do have lots of videos on there. I think there's actually a section on the toolbox specific for like webinars and videos. So that's all there as well. But one of the things that we within like our newsletter and communications that we have with folks that are kind of part of our network, we always let them know when new resources and stuff are coming out. So if you go to the website and you want to sign up for our newsletter, as we kind of get more videos uploaded into YouTube and we start using that a little bit more, we'll let folks know. Very exciting stuff is on the horizon.
Great. And so Bhavya has put into our chat that our YouTube channel filled with educational webinars is at www.youtube.com at MS Focus Foundation. So yeah, you can find it. It's pretty easy. In fact, we've got so many wonderful things on there, but this is going to be there. So what I would encourage everyone to do is, because I can see on the list of the participants tonight, those that are attending, there are quite a few that are not caregivers, but they are our clients. They are MS patients. So I think after hearing Nicole speak, you're going to probably want to tell all the people that love you, that take care of you in some way, to watch this, because I think it's going to be super beneficial to them. If they've missed it, they're going to be able to go in. They don't even have to do it in front of you. They could do it at their own leisure, in their own privacy of their bedroom, on their phone, and learn about how to work best with you. So
Yeah.
it would be an injustice, I think, to not take this information and use it for the future to help everyone. So
Yeah.
I don't think we have any more questions. Let's see. There is an anonymous one saying, sometimes my loved one with MS and I argue, and she thinks I'm too overprotective when I'm just trying to be helpful. I found it's good to talk with each other about each other's feelings and expectations.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. Um, I think that sometimes, one of the things I didn't necessarily hit on, although kind of, part of the, uh, you know, relationship with your loved one outside of just being a caregiver, is communication. We always want to keep communication open with our loved ones, and um, because they may have things that they want to talk with us about, have concerns, issues. We want to make sure that we're listening. We're listening. It's a relationship, right? That's the key to any good relationship is communication. My mom will, tell me when she thinks I'm being a little bit too much. And since I was a teenager, I've been doing that to my mom. So, it's all about just keeping that open communication going and, you know, being and feeling okay with reaching out for help if you're hitting some roadblocks. Always keeping in mind that, your loved one is in a unique kind of situation as well. If you're a caregiver, you're not experiencing kind of what they're experiencing in the day to day, having MS and in what that's like. And so it's important to keep that in mind as well. You want to be thoughtful of that. And I think all caregivers and care partners do. I think they really do try to keep that at the forefront of the mind. But I love, really, keeping that communication and openness, um, as a key.
Thank you. We have Helen who's got her hand up. So Helen, if you can, I just sent you a message asking you to unmute yourself. If you can do that, there you go. Go ahead. There you go. Let's see if she can do that. Helen, there you go. Oh, Helen, you're still muted. You're up here twice, so let's see. Helen, I got you up there twice. Let's see if either one of these. Go ahead, Helen. I see you're unmuted.
Oh, she just posted that, sorry, no questions. I think she may have posted some questions in the question section as well. So we may have gotten to her.
We got to her. Okay, everybody. I think that's it. I think you answered a lot of questions, even if they didn't come out. I think you really talked about a lot of important things. So I'm going to say that brings us to the end of our time today. If you've missed any part of this conference, it has been recorded, as I said, and will be available through the MS Focus Facebook and YouTube channels. Reply to your registration email for information on how to access recordings or to sign up for our newsletter to learn about upcoming events. Our next teleconference is going to be April 11th, and I believe that's a Tuesday, and that's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern with Dr. Ben Thrower. He's going to be answering as many questions as he can during 1 hour. He does this and it's pretty intense. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He will just answer any question that he can. So that's called Ask the MS Expert, and we do that every other month with him. So once again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Biogen, Genentech, EMD Serono, Sanofi, Viatris, Sandoz, and Bristol Myers Squibb for their support of this program. Our sincere thanks to all of our attendees for your participation, and especially to Nichole. Thank you so much for the time you took to make these slides and to prepare and share the information with us. We'd greatly appreciate each of you filling out your post-event survey. It's, I know that I talk a lot about this. People don't realize the importance that we've placed on these surveys, because it really tells us if you've enjoyed, if you've learned, if you have other things you want to learn about. And so it tells us what's most meaningful to you, and that's what we're looking for, to give you meaningful information that's going to help you with your journey with MS. So we'd like to say goodbye to everybody and thank you all for your participation, especially Nichole. Thank you so much. We hope we see you again. This was awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone so much.
Yes, have a great night, everybody. We'll see you again.